Ah, skeleton!
That's awesome. Happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome to the Carpool. I'm your host, Stu.
Oh, and I'm Kyle. That was
And
close.
today, in the lieu of the festivities, what we'll be doing is talking about creatures. And in this type, it'll be about tribal creature types in this form.
Yes, we're going to be talking about the tribes that we really like, but they haven't quite made it in terms of being competitive. So it's kind of a mix of our favorites and some things that we have potential.
Yeah, it's any of the stuff that we like for whatever reason. We're going to have 3 apiece, tell you why we like them, and a commander that's decent for them, and what they have that makes them so special, but Wizards just hasn't given them the support, and this is without changelings. Of course, you can throw changelings into any deck, and you can get more creatures for them, but we're going to take that out for right now. It's just like as this creature type as a whole. So starting off with my first tribe, if you don't mind, Kyle.
Kick it off, yeah.
So the first one that I'm concerned about, that I think we need more of, are vehicles. Now, this isn't exactly a tribe per se, because there aren't a lot of vehicle creatures. However, we have cards out there that are vehicles. We got a ton of them in Kaladesh. We got some of them that came later down the line. So right up here we have Dapala, and we also have a secondary commander option, which is Saram, which are 2 commanders that care about vehicles. Saram being in mono white, whereas Dapala's in Boros. But we have vehicles that can do a variety of things. They are just great blockers and beaters. They have haste. Some of them are able to do extraordinary things with making tokens, cultivating mana in any kind of form, like we see here with Cultivated Caravan. And they're really fun. Any deck can use them. And we just kind of stopped seeing the momentum behind these cards.
Yeah, well, there are also a lot of other different cards that you can use as commanders for a vehicle deck. Usually things that like to tap or untap, like the new Amara from War of the Spark that taps and makes a token.
Sure,
you can use that. You can also go mono black and use a King Makar to tap and untap and exile things. Yeah, so there are plenty of options, but Dapala is the only one in the Boros colors that specifically references vehicles. Well, that's not true. Saram does too, but it's a little bit looser.
Yeah.
So, yes, I agree that vehicles do need some kind of interesting commander to really put them on the map, although they are also fun to play with something like Karn Silver Golem, for example, because you can just animate them anyway.
Yeah.
However, I'm still ticked off that we can't just use legendary vehicles as commanders. Why can't I use Sky Sovereign as a commander? Come on.
I mean, it's because it's not actively a creature.
I know, but it's stupid. They should change that rule. Anyway, regardless, I do think that vehicles are a tribe that needs a little bit more supporting. They are very cool cards. I would love to see more cards that animate them. There's one Peace Walker Colossus that can animate all vehicles, which is awesome. Otherwise, they're just kind of generic creature or artifact decks that are not as susceptible to board wipes as most tribal decks.
So what we would need to see from Wizards for us to be a little bit more viable is we would need to see more vehicles for one, because there is a scarce amount of them for right now. And then also a commander that cares specifically for vehicles.
Yeah.
For right now, we have one like Dapala cares about dwarves and vehicles. Saram cares about pretty much equipments, auras,
and casting them.
And vehicles. Yeah. So it's kind of inconsequential. I mean, there is the Esper commander who like animates artifacts as well.
Which they are good in, yeah. Sidri. Yep.
So that's my number one, but yeah, I know it's not a technical tribe, but I had to just mention it because it's just something I've been hoping. It's just been on the cusp of being just plausible.
Well, who knows? I know that we're going to see plenty more vehicles in the future because Wizards has made it clear that it's something they like bringing back and that players enjoy. So we're going to see more of them.
I'm going to quote them on that, hopefully. We'll see.
Hopefully we will have another vehicle commander at some point. Maybe with a return to Kaladesh, I'd say that's probably where it would come in. But we'll see if that actually happens. Yeah, maybe.
So moving on to your number one, Kyle.
All right, so moving on to my first choice here is going to go in a little bit different direction. I got werewolves on my list. So speaking of returning to places, it kind of drives me crazy that we don't really have a real commander for werewolves. As we all know, werewolves are the cards from Innistrad that have double face. They transform under different circumstances, but usually the same one where if you don't cast spells or if you cast 2 or more spells, they transform from a human version into the werewolf version. So they kind of have a loose tribal identity in that they transform and that they pump each other. They have different disruptive abilities or aggressive abilities. They are just very overall aggressive as a tribe, but they're mostly centered in the colors red and green. So perfect possible tribal identity for something if you're thinking a little more outside the box in terms of a Gruul deck. But we don't really have any kind of real commander for them. And no, Ulrich of the Kralin Horde that we had just displayed there does not count because he's kind of lousy and he doesn't actually support the tribe at all.
He's a little low impact, and also Morphon is also going to be a commander that we're going to rule out for all these scenarios as well. Like, sure, you could do Morphon. However, Morphon's not exactly what you want for all sorts of tribes. It doesn't directly affect them. Like, sure, you can lower the cost. Sure, it gives them a little bit of a boost. But it's very bland. It's not what you really want to see.
Well, and the problem is, for werewolves especially, you only have them in really 2 colors. You know, and I'm really ticked again that when they introduced the new Tolsimir in War of the Spark, that would have been a great opportunity to go, oh, let's open things up a little bit. Let's have green-white werewolves. Ooh, that'd be cool. And then it just works with wolves, and it's like, why couldn't? I mean, I get that there were no werewolves in the set, but why couldn't you just put it on there? Throw me a bone here.
Hey,
like, come on.
Well, they have had a good bit of support. Like, heck, we even have a werewolf planeswalker that we have seen in the set. So they have gotten good support, and being in red, there's a lot of support just for generic whatever, and green just generic whatever. You want mana, you want spot removal, you want like whatever. It's just not aligned correctly, and I agree with you with that.
And the issue with werewolves is there are 2 things. Number 1, you want them usually to transform because the wolf side is way better than the human side. However, the problem then is that they can transform back like at any time almost, because it is not under your control how and when they transform. What we need from a good werewolf commander is one that can either transform things at will somehow, or has an effect like Immerwolf that forces them to stay transformed after they've flipped, and nobody can change them back.
So I don't know how this works with Morph. When they flip over, does it technically count as the backside, like they've transformed into it, or are they technically a 2/2?
If you could possibly play one face down, I don't know. Honestly, that'd be something to look up.
Like an Ixodron comes out,
I think they're just a 2/2 with no abilities still.
Just happens to have a prettier back.
I guess so. Like, that's a good one to look up.
If you know, actually, we'll let you be our fact checker. We'll give you a big old. We'll definitely give you a shout out in the next video if you actually know the answer to this one. But yeah, let us know actually the rules implication down in the comments below if you have an idea, or if you can prove it to us. We'll definitely let people let you know your stuff.
So unlike the last tribe, my point is that I think werewolves have actually enough powerful cards to make a very good deck. And definitely enough support out there. It's just they need some kind of good legendary creature as a commander to bring them all together somehow.
And we were so close to getting Arlen Accord as like the actual, like, we're gonna bring it together. And lore wise, it was there with Innistrad. It just didn't happen. We could get it if we ever returned to Innistrad to find out what happened to Emrakul in the moon.
And when we may get that, because remember, next year there's going to be 2 new Innistrad sets, one based around vampires, one based around werewolves. So
fingers crossed.
If it doesn't come out in Commander Legends, hopefully it will be then.
We'll see.
So we'll see.
We'll see. We'll take bets. So moving on to Stu's number 2.
All right, go ahead.
Now, this is a tribe that, again, it's a little not cohesive like my first one, but it has a valid reason. It is pretty much sea creatures or sea monsters. Now, these are typically in blue, and they're known as either serpents, krakens, leviathans, octopuses, or octopi. Octopode.
No, it's octopi.
Octopode. But they have a whole slew of cards that actually support them. It's just the problem is that they're in blue. Like the card on the right, Whelming Wave, it returns all creatures except for pretty much sea monsters back to their
which is an
owner's
awesome
hand.
card.
It's it's an evacuation, but in tribal style, which is completely great. And we have a whole bunch of other kind of support cards for, like, in the enchantments, there's the quest for
Ula's Temple.
And that's just a 1-drop enchantment that's kind of a descendant's path for those creatures. And it's really great, really powerful. The only problem is, sure, we have legendary sea monsters, but they're very high casted. They don't really work for a tribal style, and being a mono blue where ramp is not exactly your forte, it's tough to play, it's tough to work around, and you're also limited again to the amount of sea monsters that we've seen in play without changelings.
And it's potential that you could go into possibly other colors. We have Eryxmathes, which is the, Simic Kraken.
Sure.
That is a land and can become a creature, but there's no real tribal affinity there.
No.
You could probably go into like Temur even if you wanted to, but I don't know if there's any kind of commander that would really work with that.
Maelstrom Wanderer?
Maybe. So the point is, the problem with sea monsters is they have very high mana costs that make them extremely prohibitive to play. What we need is some kind of legendary commander or some kind of additional support that makes them cost less.
And I know you're going to say down in the comments that, sure, we have stuff where it's like, all right, this artifact comes into play, name it a creature type.
Urza's Incubator, like, for example.
Well, that's a great example.
Well, we know that.
Excluding something like that, something that's just in the roundhouse. Like, we have stuff like Dragon Servant, which is like a goblin comes into play, all dragons cost less.
Exactly.
We have even, I'm pretty sure, red enchantments that are for dragons as well, that make it so they cost less. Merfolk, same thing. And even like elementals. We don't have this for like a huge creature type out there where it's like they cost at least 6 mana and you can get them all the way up to 10.
Usually, yes.
It's not unheard of for these.
They're just, the mana costs are just ridiculously unplayable most of the time.
Yeah,
and it's a shame.
And as much as blue can draw, like, still only playing 1 land per turn. Sure, you can play out your rocks, but you're not doing anything else to interact with the board, and it always feels bad. Like, this is like a green problem, but in blue, and it doesn't have the same kind of support, regrettably.
However, Commander Legends has teased some new Simic sea monsters, so we'll see if that changes soon.
This is pre all that stuff right there. But moving on to Kyle's number 2.
All right, so my number 2, we're actually going with the theme of Halloween here, because my number 2 is spiders. Creepy, crawly spiders. So honestly, here's some examples here. We have a legend, Thantis the Warweaver, and then just a decent support card, Rotwidow Pack. Spiders, as a tribe, used to be one of those like jokey punchline kind of tribes in Magic where they were just really terrible. Yeah. However, they have actually gotten some legitimately solid support over the past several years and are like this close. If you could see my finger, you could see how close. Okay, there we go. You can see now this close to actually being good. All right.
That was great.
But we just need something to, just need a commander possibly, or maybe a few more decent cards to put them over the edge. And I think they could actually be really good. So far, all we've got is Thantis, who we just showed that is a spider, but that's really just incidental. His ability doesn't really do anything for the tribe at all, and isn't really that great if you ask me. Or we have Ishkana, who focuses on the delirium aspect, and it has potential in terms of being a combo card, but it's just kind of boring.
Is that the mono green one we got from Eldraine?
Well, it's from the old Innistrad, and it's like green-black, because it has a black ability. So, yeah, it's a delirium-focused one, and it can be very good, has some potential combos, but again, not exactly what you're looking for a strong tribal leader. However, look at something like Rotwidow Pack, for example, Grave Hate, mass life loss for all the tribe members in play. Like, that's a really good card.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just, I'm so close. We just need something to tie them all together.
And that's one deck where, like, Nyx Weaver would be in that no problem, and that is a phenomenal card.
Right.
There's also like a tribal hose where it's like they throw a web out on a creature. I forget the name of the card.
Arachnus Spinner and Arachnus Web. Yeah. It's so much fun.
It's honestly, it's like a fun little combo. It's not crazy overpowered, but like it throws a web aura on an opponent's creature, and if the opponent's creature isn't strong enough, it can't attack, can't block.
Yeah.
However, it's strong enough, it returns the aura pretty much back to the caster, and you keep doing it over and over again. It's so much fun.
Right.
It's so stupid, but the flavor there, it's just like, it's a spicy meatball. It's so good.
So yeah, and there's things like Arachnogenesis, the Spider Fog card, that are just very, very powerful and actually are semi-competitive in terms of game-winning stuff. And was that another skeleton?
Yep.
Ugh. Skeletons. Ugh. There's a tribe I don't want to see more of. They creep me out.
They've gotten a good bit of support,
as opposed to spiders. Anyway, let's go on to what's your last one?
My third one, I've been blowing it out to Kyle forever, ever. My third one is scarecrows.
This is where I roll my eyes, but you're kind of right.
It's so we have a commander that is great that works in all colors for scarecrows. Reaper King is a notorious card. It's been around since Shadowmoor, which has been a decent amount of time since that set's been out. It's great. The commander itself is what you want. You want to play more scarecrows, and when you do, you get rewarded for that. Also, you get a nice boost. And Scarecrows and Painter Servant are the two most known and notorious scarecrows because they're the only good ones.
Yeah.
The other ones really are super subpar. They care about colors, but the joy of this is that they're all colorless, meaning that they're artifacts and they're colorless and they can go into any kind of style. They can use any kind of support. And unlike 5-color decks who typically get slowed down by having 5 colors, you now can accelerate in a way where other decks can't. But there are not enough scarecrows for it to work out. When we went to Innistrad the last time, we got
a couple.
3.
Yeah.
One was just a 1-drop that was just a 2/1 creature. One was kind of like a worse version of Burnished Heart, and the other one was one that, when it dies, turns into an equipment.
Yeah, that's the one.
Harvest Hand.
Right.
Obviously, you can tell I know these.
Yeah.
But every time we get any kind of really awesome artifact creature, it's usually a golem, a construct, or some sort of weird thing in between. And honestly, if just a handful of those became errata to a scarecrow, this could work. The deck would be great. Apart from that, this only really has a cantrip of what? Rites of Flourishing with Reaper King, and that's the only thing that this deck has going for it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, very on theme of you, again, to pick Scarecrows, very in the Halloween spirit.
Thank you very much.
I've never really understood Stu's obsession with this tribe, but I will admit that Reaper King would be an amazing commander if there were actually any good Scarecrows, so, like, except for, like, the 2 that you mentioned. It's unfortunate, but I have hope that maybe in the future we will see more.
All right.
You know, it could happen.
As long as you at least hope that there's some of them.
Well, I always hope they're going to support obscure tribes. You know, it's fun. It's more fun that way.
But you can also make this as a really good budget deck. Since you don't have to worry about actually having colored mana, you can run a lot more budget lands. You're not restricted to using your Cities of Brass, your Mana Confluence, Tarnished Citadels. Any of those expensive lands are usually about at least 10 to 20 bucks. And for 5-color decks, you kind of need them.
Yeah.
This case, you can afford to use like the Panoramas. You can afford to use just like an Inventor's Fair, and it all works out just fine. You can even use fun cards like Energy Tap. You go ahead, you play out Reaper King. For 1 blue mana, you'll tap it, and now you've gained 10.
And of course, always pack a Rite of Replication, because then you can copy your Reaper King and destroy like 36 permanents.
Which is awesome. You blow up everyone's lands, you blow up whatever's a problem, you kind of should win the game. But again, just being reliant on that as your only cantrip for this to be a viable deck it just hurts.
Yeah.
It really stings.
So we really gotta beef that one up, but hopefully at some point in the future. You never know. It could happen.
So Kyle's next one coming up is my groaner, because he's gone on for this one forever. But we will cross that bridge when we are ready for it.
All right. Well, as my number 3 here, my last tribe that I would like to see more of, and I definitely think this one is, it might even be there already. I don't know. It's Knights. So yes, game Knights, good Knights. Knights.
The Black Knight always triumphs.
Exactly. Yes. So we have a few here, for example. The one genuine Knight commander that exists, Ariel, Knight of Windgrace, which is passable, but not great.
I thought there's more legendaries in that one.
Oh, there are definitely a lot of legendary knights, but not a lot that even that support knights specifically. So although Sir Gwyn is actually one that's in 3 colors.
So this is your definition
but
of the
it focuses
only.
on that focuses more on equipments and less on actual tribes.
Okay.
Basri's Lieutenant is also on here as another like a recent addition to the knight pantheon that is like extremely powerful. Anyway. You could argue that Knights don't really need any more support. After Eldraine, after Dominaria, after a lot of the recent sets, yes, they have gotten a bunch of good cards. And at least in the form of Ariel and maybe Sir Gwyn, at least like 1 or 2 viable commanders. But hey, I'm greedy and I want more. Because the biggest thing is, we're limited in colors so far. We don't have a Knight commander in green. There are a lot of good Knights with green in them.
There's always a good Knight when you're in green.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, actually, they even got a land, and I think that was pushing red, white, black.
Yes, they're Mardu or they're Orzhov right now. I'd love to see an Abzan Knight commander. I really would, because then we can play Knights of the Reliquary, and then the Knight of Autumn from one of the recent Ravnicas that's really good.
Well, and you can also use any of the Elemental Knights that we got that whole cycle
the Cavaliers happen to be nice. Wizards has really been pushing this tribe recently, And I'm all for that. I just think we need a little bit more.
See, I thought initially when they announced the party mechanic, knights would be a part of that party. Like, it seemed like they were gearing it towards that.
Yeah.
Except now it just seems like this weird, we're forcing you to eat your vegetables for one day.
Yeah.
It's like one of those kind of things. It didn't make a lot of sense. I get this is your, like, yo, knights. This would be a cool deck. I get that that's your thing, but, like, honestly, they've gotten a lot of support recently, so I can't really give you a vote for that one to be like, yeah. I mean, when was the last scarecrow printed?
Yeah.
When was the last vehicle printed?
I don't think we need more per se. I just think we need more diversity in terms of deck options. That's what I think we need.
Yeah, that's fine. I can give you that, but I won't. But that is our final one. If you agree with us, let us know which tribes that we said that you're like, yo, 100% on the money. Or if you completely disagree and think a different tribe, like sponges, totally need support, let us know. Put it down.
Squirrels.
Squirrels?
Fungus.
Squirrels? Yeah, there's tons of tribes out there that people are like, I love this card, I love this card, and there's a cool combo, but there's no reason why I would use it in...
And then there's ones like Aetherborn that have a lord and yet no tribe.
Yeah,
so
that's another... That was on my list actually to potentially do, but...
Yeah. Well, you never know. But let us know if there are any tribes that you want to see more of, because we would love to know.
Down in the comments below, Mr. Skeleton Man. But that is going to wrap up our magic moment for Halloween, our spooky season episode. But be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions, and you can see us all over the interwebs.
Absolutely. We are on Reddit. You can find all our deck lists on Tapped Out. Check out what we're playing. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter, and we're all at the handle The Card Pool. So check us out.
And until then, I am Stu.
And I am Kyle. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, and we'll see you next time at the Card Pool. Do you have your Halloween costume picked out yet?
Sort of. Not a skeleton, though.
You've had months.
I know.